Hopefully you can see a screenshot of a MAXQDA interface with a program for the session just loaded as a document in the document browser. Is that showing up okay, Adrian?
Yes, it does.
Great. So just a quick outline of what I'm going to discuss over the next 30 minutes or so. I'm going to talk a little bit about how you prepare survey data for importing it into MAXQDA, because that's quite a crucial step. A little bit about coding the responses to an open question, which is the second phase of working with this survey data. And then want to do a little bit more about reporting. First of all, the code frequencies as a result of your coding of the open questions, the statistics that you get from the closed questions, and then the real mixed methods stage where we combine the data from both open and closed questions, which I think MAXQDA is a fantastic tool for allowing us to bring this together. But what I want to start with is looking at the data preparation. And for this, I need to change my screen share to a different, to a spreadsheet. And hopefully now you can see an Excel spreadsheet of a survey data collected. It's actually the data from the work-life balance English language example project. But almost any way of collecting online survey data is going to lead you to a spreadsheet. There is a direct import into MAXQDA from SurveyMonkey, but there are many other data collection tools where you need to take the data you've collected with your survey tool, put it into Excel, and do one or two operations, and then import it into your MAXQDA project from that Excel workbook. So here is something a little bit like the raw data. And you can see we've got a number of quite a lot of closed questions with simple statistical, numeric and very short answers. And then here we've got some open questions with longer text answers. We want to bring those into MAXQDA in such a way that these texts are available for coding, but these closed questions go into the variables part of the program. The first thing you need to look at is at the beginning of this, when you have a unique response ID for each person who's responded to you. Most survey tools will naturally do that, but just make sure before you go any further that you have got. It doesn't have to be a perfect sequence. There can be gaps. That doesn't matter at all, but they must all be different to each other. And then what you will also need is, and I suggest you insert a column at column A, because this won't be an output from your survey tool. Put the document heading as document group up at the top, and this put a word in that you'll copy all the way down your responses. I've used the word survey here, and that means that when I import this data into a MAXQDA project, in the document system, it will create a little group under the title survey and use these IDs as the document names. The other thing you need to check is the text in the top row of this spreadsheet, where I would expect it, which are the labels for and often the text that goes in here are the actual question texts from your survey. And it's a good idea to edit these down to something short, because you can imagine all these short statistical answers that are going to go into the variables, they're going to need short variable names to identify them. If you've got long questions, it's going to become very clumsy when you come to work with them later. So edit this top row to shorten most of the labels in that. When it comes to the open questions, it's more acceptable to leave a longer label in there. It'll become a code name, but nonetheless, you don't want to be too long-winded. So short labels are very helpful there. I'm going to minimize that and go back to my screen sharing. Come up here, and I want to go back into my Slightly slow, but here we are, back into MAXQDA. And what I've got here is an empty project. It's got no data, no codes, ready for the data import. So that's the stage that I'm now going to demonstrate live, picking up the data. You would normally have to close the spreadsheet, but I've got a separate copy of it that I'm going to import. Okay. So I want to, from the survey data on the imports menu, I want to import data from an Excel spreadsheet. There is the direct import from SurveyMonkey, and there is also an import from SPSS. Not sure is it still called SPSS, the statistics program, but I'm going to use the Excel spreadsheet. I now need to navigate to where I've got it, and I'm going to use this edited working copy one. So select the one that I want and click open. Now, the first dialog for the import, and you'll now start to understand some of the things that I've just been telling you about. The top two questions: which column contains the labels for the document group? And if I click on the drop down, it shows me all of the top row of the spreadsheet, and I do indeed, it's guessed correctly, I want document group there, but for the document name, I want the response ID. That's the second column, which has all those respond 01, respond 02, and so on. So get those set because they control the document system part of how these are going to appear there. Underneath, I've got a whole series of tick boxes where I tell MAXQDA where I want it to put these things. And I don't want it, the top two, they're going to go up there, the document group and response ID. I don't need to bring those in again. All of the closed questions will go with ticks in the variable column. But when I get to the open questions, as I scroll down, we should find that MAXQDA correctly interprets this why more time, and we get a preview data. Yes, that's an open text. That needs to go in the code column, meaning it's not going to create a code. Well, it is going to create a code, but it's also the data that we need to code. I've got two code questions, two open questions. They've got ticks. MAXQDA's got all the rest of these right. So it was only those top two that I needed to work at in this, but it's always good to check that it's getting it right. One more little thing in passing, you've got an option to code empty cells, put a tick or not. I strongly recommend you don't tick that. Non-response is an interesting aspect of open questions in surveys. If you don't tick it, if you leave it blank as I've got it now, we will get an accurate count of how many people have tried to answer our open questions. If you tick it, it'll just code a whole lot of empty data, which will clutter up the analysis later on. So leave that empty. And I want to, this question is easier the first time. If you do multiple imports, you may need to consider this little question and these possible answers, but we're just going to import that. So I click OK. We're not there yet. The second stage, excuse me, it asks now for what kind of variable do I want to have all of the closed questions, and most of them will come as texts. It gives a little example from probably the first row of the spreadsheet, and even though this top one looks like numeric, because it's got a range, and it's an age range 30 to 39, it's got to come in as text because it's not a pure number. The only one that is a pure integer is the number of children, that one. All of the others, even this studying or further education time 9 or less, can't come in as numeric. So its guesses are all right, but you have got the possibility, if I just look at the possible ones, text is what I want, but you've got true, false, date, time variables, and possible decimal or integer for the number ones. So you've got the possibility of altering any of these if need be. I'm going to click on the import again, and now it's doing it. It's actually running through, and it has imported that, and we get an interesting little dialogue comes up now telling us what it's done. Okay, the important thing in here is it has ignored no documents. We've got a perfect import. 55 texts have been imported, 2 open questions and 20 closed questions, and so on. And what you should do with this is copy it and paste it into your logbook or a free memo or somewhere. Paste it somewhere, because if you're doing a PhD or something, that's a little bit of evidence of the quality and that you're monitoring the quality of your analysis. You've got a record of what data was actually brought in. I will skip that step for sake of time. Now, check my screen. In the document system, if I activate the survey group of documents, it tells me I've got 55 activated documents. So there are 55 documents under the heading survey. They've all gone in this group because I put survey in the first column of the spreadsheet, and they're identified by all those unique labels from the second column of the spreadsheet. In the code system, I've got two codes, and these are the top row is the label, the two open questions. By editing them to this length, they're readable and making sense. The numbers here are telling me that I got, out of 55 cases in the survey, I got 48 responses to the first one, why more time on this particular activity, but only 22 to the second. Those figures are accurate because I didn't tick that box at the import stage, code empty cells. So the empty cells have not been coded, so they don't get counted. Here in the document browser, I can see the responses from respondent 1 and how they are coded here. If I now activate the survey question and say the first question into my retrieved segments, I will get the 48 coded segments from the people who did answer that first question. If I go to the variables part, I can see by looking at the data editor for document variables, let's just make this a little bit bigger. This looks very much like the spreadsheet. There are my respondent identifiers, and these are the variables. Now you can see the value of having short labels in that first row of the spreadsheet, because most of these labels make sense. I could have abbreviated number of children. A common English abbreviation of the word number is to type NO dot children, or I could have abbreviated to kids or something. But we've got a yes/no question, do you have children? And then we've got a number of children question, and we've got an automatically filled -9 for those who don't have children, as a kind of non-response for that. And I can scroll across and see all of these. These are all the closed questions. We're going to come back to those a little bit later. But the second thing on if I go back to my, just reset, go back to my program. So what I've just done, I've done the data preparation and I've imported it. And a little extra step there is to just consider, do a quality check that all the data you expected has come in. That's what I've just briefly demonstrated there. Now I want to look at the task of coding the responses to one question. We'll look briefly at this first question. I'm not going to do a full analysis here. If I go to the analysis, we've got a special function in the analysis ribbon, categorize survey data. And that's what I'm going to use now. Select that. It says, drag and drop a code of a survey question from the code system to the window here. So I'm going to bring in why more time on this particular activity. Because I've activated the survey group, it offers me the only activated documents, and I can click OK. It now will open another window. Hopefully you're seeing this pop-up window on the top with a bit of the code system, just the code for the question we're working, and just the responses for the 48 questions that we've got. And we haven't got any codes, but this is within this window now, we are ready to do our analysis. Now you've got quite a range, quite a spectrum of possible ways of doing the analysis. You could work entirely manually. You could read each question in turn, decide on a code, create a code manually, and attach it segment by segment. That's a bit laborious. We could open up a word cloud. Okay, so now this is giving me all the most frequently used words in this data. It's not very rich data, and I don't find this word cloud particularly informative, but we can turn the word cloud into a frequency table by clicking on that word frequencies. Did you see there's a word frequencies in the word cloud window, which gives yet another pop-up? And I prefer to drag the frequency column immediately beside the word because I get distracted by the word lengths. So the most frequently used word is time, followed by work and job, and so on. Children comes up quite high here. So there's a clue that quite a few people talk about children and family, but there's obviously discussions of work and jobs. There's some discussions of money and things like that. I don't know enough about this data for this to give me a way in at the moment, so I'm going to close that. But if you're really familiar with your data, you may find that's quite a sufficient way to take you in. Well, we might come back to that. If I know the keywords that I want to use, I can go straight into searching for keywords and auto-coding from it. If I am doing multiple waves of a particular survey, you might find it worthwhile creating a dictionary which allows you to store multiple search and auto commands in one place, and then a single command does multiple search and auto codes for you. It's quite a lot of work setting up a dictionary, but if you've got to keep on repeating lots of search and auto codes, you might find that useful. But I'm sure you're interested in seeing what AI Assist can offer us for this tool now. So let's have a look at the AI Assist drop down, and we can summarize. Well, that's not going to be very much useful if we want to relate data to the quantitative stuff. So I'm going to go for suggesting subcodes based on responses. I think this at the moment, with the kind of data I've got here, this is the one that looks most interesting to me. So I'm going to access that. I'm going to do it in English. I want a bullet list. I want it only for the activated documents, and I've got a tick that it'll be uploaded. Some of that was covered by Stefan in his last thing. AI Assist is now working, and it's going to add material to my code memo for the question code that we are working in. It's going to come in a moment. It's normally quite quick. Okay, here it is. So it's opened the code memo for why more time on this particular activity, and it's suggesting, let's scroll down, it's offering me 10 possible codes, first one being family time, the second code being self-care, and it's offering me 2 examples of data that it thinks relate to that code. I can use these to guide me through the next stage of my analysis. I'm going to take the family time, and I'm going to take the number 9, volunteering and community involvement. And I'm going to create those first of all. So let's, over here, I think I can keep this window open. Can I add a new code and call it family time? I won't worry, we'll give it a color, won't worry. And click OK. I think I've lost my other. Where did it go? And what I want to do is I want to copy those examples. Let's close that. Open up the code memo here. Here we come. And paste in the examples because they'll help me to code. Close that. So this is a little bit clunky, but and the other one I was going to do was the volunteering. Let's see if I can copy and paste that label. Close that. New code. Paste in the label. Give it a different, well, no, we'll give it the same color. Okay. That's done it there. Reopen this. Let's just get make it consistent. Close that. I've got my examples. Okay, I can close that. So now I can refer by hovering over the code memo there. I can see my examples. Family time, examples, spend more time with family, especially children and parents, travel to visit, sorry, what was that? Travel to visit family members. So now if I come back to my code question, the way this works just like the smart coding tool, it's the same bit of program. It displays whatever, all the segments attached to whichever code I put here. And it's useful, by the way, that we make all the analysis codes for this question subcodes of the question. So while I'm on this question, I can now do search and autocode. And let's code for family and possibly children. Okay, and we'll use the lemma list. And let's run search. Okay, now it gives me a list of segments which have those. I should check it and I can exclude some if I want. But now we've got the possibility of auto coding. So what I'm going to choose, there's always a question when we come to auto coding. What should we do? The full response, the paragraph, the sentence, or just the word? Only in this categorized survey data are you offered this top one, autocode the whole response. And I think if you've got responses of these kind of lengths, it's better than autocoding sentences, autocode the full response. So that's what I'm going to do. It gives me a different label and color, and it identifies it as a search and autocode. I'm going to click OK. And it's found 14 segments and coded them. Now it's added a new code for those. So what I now want to do is right click on this. I want to merge it in with the family time. So I right click and I say move coded segments, and I right click on family time and I say paste coded segments in there. Okay. One extra step. And there they are, the 14 have gone there. There are none here. I can delete that code. So with the help of AI Assist, I've done some coding there. Let's close that. Let me now go to a ready coded project in the best principles of children's television. Here's one I made earlier. Here is now the same data, the same 55 responses, but now with our 48 codes here, we've got more codes and more data. So if I activate a respondent who's got quite a number, we can see this first respondent, we've got 3 separate thematic codes attached to that first response: childcare, volunteering and community, relationship, and family. It's interesting to me reading this here now. I did it with AI Assist 10 days or a couple of weeks ago, and I got a different set of suggested codes. So there's a little lesson there. It's recommended, if you want to use AI Assist in this way, that you run that AI Assist suggest subcodes 2 or 3 times and check out the different things that it offers you, because it offered me quite a different set of code names. We didn't have childcare and family responsibilities a moment ago, and I also, for some reason, I got 3 options. This one included caring for my grandchildren. I don't remember seeing grandchildren being mentioned in the AI Assist that we ran a little bit earlier. But let's just accept that. Now let's look at reporting. So we've jumped forward a couple of hours of work, and we're now ready to look at reporting this. If I go to the analysis, the first stage of reporting will be to report the code frequencies. I think if I activate the question code that I'm interested in and go to the analysis code frequencies function, I can, because I've got activation, I can just insert activated codes. But now the question code itself will distort the table. So having used it to bring them all in, I'm going to take it out again, just the question code, and start just with the childcare, just the thematic analysis one. And only for activated documents, but I don't want to aggregate subcodes on that. There's a useful reference to the help manual if you're unsure of how all those various things worked. Click OK. And here are the code frequencies as a result of the coding, AI assist, and so on that I've done. And it's just counting documents with code. A document represents a response each case. Look at those as a chart. Personally, I find with this sort of chart, with these kind of labels, the horizontal bar chart, I find rather more useful because the labels are much easier to read and make sense of. You've got lots of tools along here. You can choose whether you want to display or hide percentages, display or hide the actual numbers. I've got both shown here. You can change the color scheme. What's this one? So, you know, you can have it in a different color schemes, as imaginative as you like, and you can set headings and so on. If I go back to the table, I could resort this into alphabetical order to get a more interesting chart where these aren't coming necessarily in a consistent thing. But that's a matter of taste. Whichever way you like, but by going backwards and forwards, sorting either by frequency or by alphabetical, you can get this in any one, sort it frequency descending, and then I get the longest bar at the top, and so on. Okay, so that's reporting those. Close that. If I go to the variables part of the menu and look at document variable statistics, now, I've got all of the variables, and here again, that matter of having short labels comes into play. But let's just pick a few here. No, I don't want the child. I want age. Move that across. Number of children. We'll have the number of children. Highest education level. That's an interesting one. Let's have a look at more. Who wants to have more paid work? And who wants to have more leisure time, maybe. Okay, only for activated documents. Let's go and have a look at these. So now I've got multiple ones. I can scroll through the little set that I've just chosen with these sideways arrows. So there's the table for age. There's the table for the number of children, 2, 4, 1. Let's just sort that into ascending order, yes. Highest educational level. That's going to be a tricky one. Because the alphabetical sort doesn't help me. Let's go descending order and so on. More paid work. Okay. Now, let's now look at these as charts. So only 15% of the people answering the question wanted more paid work. 84% didn't. That's not a great surprise. Highest educational level, we might find that more informative to do that sideways, but the sequence isn't very handy here, but we can live with it. Number of children, no, that's not. I wanted that. Okay, sort that way. Now look at the chart. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That makes sense. So we can see that the most common number, that's hardly a surprise, number of children is 2, and so on. And age, have we got these in a sensible order? Yes. We can see the age profile of our respondents. All good. Now, let's put all that together in the mixed methods and look at a cross tab where we, and I just need to clear the list because I'd done it before. Need to show you how to create it. So we'll look at how their answers to these why more time on this particular activity varies with their age, just for the sake of simplicity. So I keep the same activations, that's fine. Before I'm going to move my variable that I want to make the columns into this, but before I do, if I put a tick in this very small box down here, insert all variable values as conditions, and then I click on the age and the right arrow, I get all of the possible ones. Let me show you what happens if I do that the wrong way. Remove that tick. Now if I try to move age in, all I get is age is empty, and I get the chance over here to choose what value, and I've got to do it one after another for each of these. So let's clear that list and do it right. So put the tick in there before you move your variable of choice across, and then you get them all in one go. Only for activated documents, only for activated codes. Okay. Now, this cross tab, this takes a little bit of getting used to, and some of the pure qualitative ones amongst you may be finding this slightly tricky, but I can read across any of these questions and say, childcare, how many people have given me a response which we've coded to childcare and family in each of these age groups. But the trouble is, we've got different numbers of people responding to the question and different numbers of documents relating to it. So this is where I think if we use the row percentage statistics and check against the number of documents is the 55, that's the total number of people there. So if any of the rows above has a percentage figure that's wildly out of line with the percentages in this bottom row, something interesting may be happening here. Look at the 50 to 59-year-olds and this 40%. We haven't got very much data here. I'm really pushing my my luck here with the statistics, but hopefully if you collected more data, this will be slightly more valid. It's not really valid with only 55 documents, but hopefully it's enough, just enough to give you the idea. I'm curious, that 40% is a long way. Only 10% of the people in the survey were age 50 to 59, but 40% of the responses coded to relationship and family time has come from that group. That looks a little bit out of line. Let's just check the numbers. Oh, it's a very low number. Okay, so it's maybe not that significant. But anything else showing up of interest? The 20 to 29-year-olds aren't very interested in childcare, which is hardly surprising. They probably don't have children yet, and so on. So you can look at a table like this, where we're looking at the open answers that people gave us to the survey, and we have coded it to the themes that seem to make sense in terms of our research questions and so on. And now we could use, I've used age as an example, but we could use any of the closed questions from the survey and go and look for patterns of response. And if we are, let's just look for the sake of interest, let's focus on that 40% one. I don't have to stay only in these numbers. If I click on this tool here, the segment matrix, I can go back to my source data. This was relationship and family time, I think, wasn't it? Oh, let me just minimize that. Which one was it? Yes, it was relationship and family time. Restore it back up. And it was the older group. Here we are, the two here. We can look and see, how are these 50-year-olds talking about relationship and family time? I'd like to spend more time with my mother and my children. As an older person has still got a mother alive. As opposed to, and now I'm in trouble with the Zoom screen sharing obstructing my slider at the bottom of the screen here, I think. Well, I can still move it. How the younger people have talked about that. Let's look at the childcare one. The 20 to 29-year-olds. Oh, one's got a daughter here. We can choose whether we want to see the source display origins. By clicking on that, I can choose, do I want to see which respondent has contributed this or not? As we've coded whole responses, we know that each paragraph is a separate respondent, but this just allows us to go back and relate to the actual people and so on. So I don't have to just look at the numbers. I can look at the words and see, does age have any interesting bearing on how these people have answered the data? Now, oh, we forgot to say in the introduction, please put your questions in the question and answer. I'll keep that up on my screen and see over in the chat. If you've got any questions, send them to the Q&A. But I can see Curtis, the difference in categories may be the result of the difference in the number of documents included. In the import example, you had 55 documents. Here you have 132. I'm not quite sure what your 132 is. 132. I had 110 coded segments in all. Curtis, I can't understand your reference to 132 there, but perhaps you can enlighten me. Anybody else got a question on any aspect of this? It was quite quick going. There is, by all means, download the handout, which has almost all of the steps that I've covered there. You should be able to follow it and recreate it for yourself. The data is there in the English work-life example. You might need to open up, save a copy of that example project, remove any existing thematic coding, and then you can try the coding step again yourself. In my current example, it appears to be 132 documents. No, I've found the 132. Here it is. The 132 is the total number of coded segments in the survey group of documents. So that includes the questions themselves and all of the thematic analysis. So 48 of that 132 are the codings of the questions, and then these other ones are there. So it's across both questions. That's where it's coming from. It's not 132 documents. There are 132 coded segments in this little project. Anik asks, is there a way to see correlations among variables throughout the responses? You'll need to look for correlations in your variables. You'll need to have the stats element, which is in the biggest MAXQDA license category. But yes, once you brought this into MAXQDA, if you've got the stats menu available to you, you then move the data into a statistics thing. And yes, you can then look for correlations in your closed questions. So very much, yes, you can look at that. You can also, by converting your codes to variables, you can look for correlations between closed question variables and your coding of the open questions. Stefan is asking, how can I analyze different groups, that is different document folders or sets? Well, I've grouped my documents by their age. That's what I'm doing. I'm comparing those groups. And if I close that and come back into my crosstab again and clear the list, I could make a different group of whether we have children or not, and click OK. And here we get a much simpler table. Have they got children or not? And hardly surprisingly, we're getting a higher number of responses under childcare for those who do have children than from those who don't. Perhaps the family responsibilities that are being discussed here are parents or siblings or something, and so on. So And if you've divided your survey respondents up inside your document system into different waves of a survey, for example, or different data collection practices, you can use those as well in this same thing. Again, if I come back into the crosstab, the document groups are an available group on which you can sort the columns. So it's not only the closed questions that we can use for this, it's also any other structure that you've put into that. Any other questions? Or any supplementary questions? Simone Yeager, can these results be exported to SPSS for further analysis, for example? And which visual presentation of these results from MAXQDA would you recommend for one's paper, article, or thesis? Well, yes, two very, very big questions. Let me just set up that, put up that cross tab again. Actually, what I want to do, no, yeah, I do want that. Trying to think on my feet. Clear the list. Yes, let's bring the age one back in. Okay. At the top of the table, we have some export functions here. I suggest you could export this table if that was what you wanted to report. But I think if you want to analyze it in SPSS, what you actually need are the individual. You need not this one. To analyze in SPSS, you possibly need the code matrix browser for documents, which has all the ones respondent by respondent, and then merge that with the variable of interest. That's a slightly more difficult thing because you're going to ask SPSS to do the crosstab that I was just demonstrating within MAXQDA. Which presentation would I recommend? Well, I find that very difficult to answer because it does depend very much on the sort of data you're analyzing, the research question, and so on. You've got lots of wonderful visual tools and things. Have a play around, explore them, see what speaks to you, and that's what you'll be able to report with most confidence and most impressive passion, I suggest. Don't feel I've answered those very, very successfully, but it's best I can do under slight pressure. We've got to finish in just a moment, so that you can have a comfort break before the next session. Okay, well, look in the resources for the handouts. I used no slides in this. Let me just go back to my brief agenda. That's the only slide which is here in it. So we looked at the data preparation in the spreadsheet and then importing it. We briefly looked at coding the responses to one question, but I didn't want to get too bogged down with that. But that was where I used a little bit of AI assist. Then we looked at reporting code frequencies from the open questions. That's in the analysis code frequencies was the tool I used for that. Statistics from the closed questions, I went to variables and document variable statistics for that. And then the combined was from the mixed methods. The crosstab was the one that I used and went on from the crosstab to the segment matrix that's attached to it to show it in the full. I suggest that segment matrix is not really suitable for putting into a report. There's just too many words in it, but that's for your thinking and you'll take significant quotations out of it. Shirley's trying to download the PDF of my my handout. I'm sure it will become available. It may not be available until after the session has finished, Shirley.